Buffalo Bills training camp has officially opened its doors, and if the first few days are any indication, this is not going to be a quiet, business-as-usual summer in Western New York. The message coming out of St. John Fisher is loud, it is direct, and it comes straight from the mouth of one of the most respected veterans in that locker room. Dion Dawkins looked into the cameras and delivered 4 words that are about to define this entire season: kill or be killed. Buckle up, Bills Mafia, because we are breaking down everything happening in camp, and then we are diving into a name that could completely change the ceiling of this offense: Tyreek Hill. Let's start with the State of the Union in Buffalo. This is a franchise that has become painfully familiar with getting close and coming up empty. Year after year, the Bills enter January looking like one of the most dangerous teams in football, and year after year, something goes wrong at the worst possible moment. 2 veterans addressed that reality head-on as camp opened, and their message was refreshingly blunt. One player admitted the team does not always feel like it controls its own destiny, acknowledging that Buffalo keeps getting close every single season without ever breaking through. But then came the real fire, courtesy of Dion Dawkins, who essentially put the entire roster on notice. If Josh Allen is playing at his best, that means everybody else needs to be operating at an elite level too. Not just Allen, not just the star players. Everybody, from the tight ends to the running backs to the head coach himself, needs to elevate their game. Dawkins made it clear the time for talking is over. It is, in his words, kill or be killed, and this team is not playing around with anybody. That kind of statement does not happen by accident. It is the sound of a veteran who has lived through the heartbreak firsthand and is done pretending the near misses do not sting. And Buffalo has certainly earned the right to be frustrated. Think about the playoff scars this fan base has endured. There was the legendary shootout against Kansas City, the one where a receiver scored 4 touchdowns in a single game, only for Patrick Mahomes to answer with a game-tying drive in the final 13 seconds before Buffalo lost in overtime. There was the AFC Championship appearance where Josh Allen orchestrated a furious double-digit comeback, only to watch a 4th down heave to his tight end fall incomplete in the closing minutes. In total, Kansas City has eliminated Buffalo from the playoffs 4 separate times across a 5-season stretch. And just last season, in a game riddled with turnovers and a controversial officiating call, the Bills forced overtime in Denver, only to fall short yet again. This fan base has earned every ounce of its frustration, and that frustration is exactly what fueled Dawkins' fiery message. So how is Buffalo actually trying to fix it heading into this season? The front office went to work this offseason, and the results are hard to ignore. On offense, the headline addition is wide receiver DJ Moore, acquired in a trade that sent Buffalo into the everybody eats era's rear-view mirror since Stephon Diggs departed. This offense has leaned heavily on spreading the football around to a committee of pass catchers, and while that approach produced plenty of regular season wins, it has not been enough when the calendar flips to January. DJ Moore changes that equation. He is a receiver who can line up on the outside and win directly against press coverage. Someone dangerous with the ball in his hands after the catch. Yes, his numbers dipped to the lowest of his career last season in Chicago, but that decline came alongside a significant drop in target volume, not a decline in ability. Get him the football consistently, and Buffalo finally has an answer for the moments when a defense plays tight man coverage and dares this offense to beat them with one receiver winning his matchup immediately. Buffalo did not stop there. 4th-round rookie Skyler Bell adds speed and versatility to the receiver room, giving this offense another dangerous option reminiscent of the game Khalil Shakir already plays at a high level. And let's be honest about Keon Coleman. He simply has not delivered on his early promise through 2 seasons, and Buffalo desperately needed another big physical body on the outside who can win against man coverage in must-have situations, the kind of receiver Josh Allen can trust implicitly when a game hangs in the balance. But it is not just the offense getting a facelift. The defensive side of the ball received just as much attention this offseason. with Buffalo bringing in pass rusher Bradley Chubb along with a wave of new veteran additions to the secondary. And that defensive investment matters enormously because last season Buffalo simply could not stop the run. When a defense cannot control the ground game, it puts enormous, unfair pressure on the offense and on Josh Allen specifically to outscore everybody. The hope now rests on a group of ascending young defensive linemen finally living up to their potential, giving new defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard the pieces he needs to make his system work when the pressure is at its highest. All of this investment has not gone unnoticed by the odds makers. Buffalo currently sits at 10-1 odds to win the Super Bowl, tied with Baltimore for the shortest odds among every single AFC team. That is not just Bills Mafia optimism talking. That is Las Vegas putting real money behind the belief that this roster is built to finally break through. But here is where things get really interesting and where we need to talk about the pass rush specifically. Because the numbers tell a story that should genuinely alarm anyone wearing red, white, and blue. Over the past 5 regular seasons, Buffalo's pass rush has actually been quite good, generating a sack rate just under 7%, good for the 7th best mark in the entire NFL. But flip over to the postseason, specifically those 5 gut-wrenching playoff losses over the same stretch, and that sack rate collapses to just 2.5%. That is not a small dip. That is a complete disappearance of the pass rush precisely when Buffalo needs it most. And before anyone chalks that up to facing generational quarterback talent who simply avoids sacks at an elite level, consider this: in last season's playoff loss to Denver, the opposing quarterback dropped back to throw 46 times and was not sacked a single time. 0. That is not a case of facing an unsolvable puzzle. That is a defense failing to generate pressure when the stakes are at their absolute highest. So Buffalo enters this season with a clear thesis. Josh Allen has already carried more than his fair share of the burden for years. Now it is time for everyone else to catch up. The offensive line has to be better. James Cook has to be better. Dalton Kincaid has to be better. New head coach Joe Brady has to be better. And most critically, the defense has to stop vanishing the moment January arrives. Now let's get into the part of this story that has Bills Mafia buzzing across social media. What if Brandon Beane is not done adding weapons to this receiver room? What if, beyond DJ Moore and Skyler Bell, Buffalo explores the wild possibility of adding Tyreek Hill? Let's be completely transparent right out of the gate. Tyreek Hill has not signed with the Buffalo Bills. There is no confirmed visit, no contract offer, no ongoing negotiation that has been reported. He is also currently recovering from a serious leg injury, which means absolutely nobody can guarantee what version of Tyreek Hill would show up on an NFL field in 2026. This is, at this stage, purely a hypothetical scenario. But it is a fascinating one, and it is exactly the kind of high-risk, high-reward gamble a franchise sometimes takes when it genuinely believes its championship window is open right now, this season, not 3 years from now. Here is the key detail that makes this idea intriguing rather than reckless. Tyreek Hill would not need to become Buffalo's #1 receiver. He would not need to steal targets away from DJ Moore. His entire value would come down to one word: fear. Even if Hill returns with only a fraction of the game-breaking speed that once made him the single most terrifying deep threat in professional football, opposing defenses would still have to account for him on every single snap. Picture the alignment. DJ Moore lined up on one side, Hill on the other. Khalil Shakir working out of the slot, Dalton Kincaid attacking the middle of the field, James Cook creating chaos out of the backfield. How exactly does a defense play straightforward man coverage against that kind of personnel grouping? Leave Moore isolated, and Allen has a physical receiver who wins through contact. Leave Hill without safety help, and one clean release could turn into an explosive touchdown in the blink of an eye. Keep both safeties deep to respect the speed, And suddenly there is wide open space underneath for Shakir, Kincaid, and Cook to feast on. That is the true value of a player like Hill. He does not just help when the ball comes his way. His mere presence on the field forces a defense to reveal its intentions before the snap even happens. For years, Josh Allen has been asked to bail this offense out after plays break down, escaping pressure and creating something out of nothing through sheer physical talent. Adding a weapon like Hill could flip that dynamic entirely, helping Joe Brady manufacture advantages before the play even begins, rather than relying on Allen's improvisational brilliance to save every third down. Of course, any potential deal would need to protect Buffalo from unnecessary risk. We are talking about a one-year contract, minimal guaranteed money, strong medical protections, and incentives tied directly to games played, snap counts, explosive plays, and post-season production. No franchise should hand out a contract based on old highlight reels. No promise of a massive target share. No blind assumption that a player recovering from a significant injury will instantly return to his previous form. Buffalo would need to manage his workload carefully, starting with limited snaps early in the season, creative motion packages, selected vertical shots, and quick-touch concepts designed to get him into open space efficiently. The entire point would not be chasing gaudy September statistics. It would be preserving whatever explosive juice remains for when it matters most, in January. And let's be crystal clear about something important. Tyreek Hill cannot fix Buffalo's defense. He cannot sack an elusive quarterback. He cannot slow down an electric dual-threat playmaker. He cannot single-handedly repair a run defense or make Jim Leonard's pressure packages more effective. Buffalo still needs real answers on that side of the ball, regardless of what happens at receiver. But what Hill could do is reduce the number of miracle drives Josh Allen has to produce to win a game. One explosive touchdown changes a scoreboard instantly. One deep completion flips field position. One safety forced to respect a burner 20 yards downfield opens up running room for James Cook to control tempo. That margin matters enormously in close playoff games, and Buffalo simply cannot keep building every postseason game plan around the hope that Josh Allen manufactures 4 fourth-quarter miracles. There are real risks here, and they should not be glossed over. The injury may have permanently taken away Hill's signature top-end speed. His arrival could squeeze opportunities away from younger receivers still trying to develop. Buffalo would need total clarity about exactly what his role would look like inside an already crowded offense. This cannot be a move made purely because the name generates headlines and social media buzz. It only makes sense if the medical evaluations come back clean, the financial risk stays low, and Hill himself accepts that DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, and the rest of that room already have established important roles to play. But this is a season built entirely around urgency. Joe Brady is trying to prove he belongs as a franchise-caliber head coach right out of the gate. Jim Leonard is trying to build a defense that finally shows up when the calendar flips to the postseason. The veterans in that locker room are on record saying they are done playing around. And Josh Allen is chasing the one accomplishment that would forever change how his legacy gets remembered. If Tyreek Hill can still run, still strike fear into a defense, and still force opponents to change their entire structure just to account for him, then investigating the possibility feels like exactly the kind of calculated risk a franchise on the brink should be willing to take. Because kill or be killed cannot just be a slogan chanted at a training camp podium. Buffalo has to make the rest of the AFC believe it. So Bills Mafia, it is your turn to weigh in. Would you offer Tyreek Hill a low-risk, prove-it contract if the medical checks out? Or is the injury simply too dangerous a gamble to trust? Smash that like button if you are fired up for this Bills season. Drop your honest take in the comment section below and make sure you are subscribed for daily Buffalo Bills news, rumors, and real Bills Mafia reactions all the way through training camp and beyond. Let's go Buffalo, and we will see you in the next one.